Well, I've learned something today. First of all, it's best not to talk after lunch. Second, it's best not to talk after Katerina. Well, what I'm going to hope to do is sort of try and find some blocks underneath all of that sort of tie it all together so that we can take a look. Did everyone bring their brain with them today? I left mine at the hotel. And for those of you who don't know, I come from America now. I'm originally from England, so that's why I have a strange accent. And what we're going to talk about today is some of the fundamentals of the brain, and then how does it apply in teams. Let's talk about some fundamentals. Here's some, I'm not going to read them all to you, but this is about your brain. It's about 1.5 kilograms. 100 plus chemicals sloshing around. We used to think there was 80, in some of the literature you will see that there's 100 billion neurons. More recent studies show 85 billion, 86 billion. If anyone's going to volunteer to give their brain and we'll actually count it, then please let me know. We have about 100 plus chemicals that are sloshing around all the time. The brain uses about 20% of the body's energy when we're at rest. So although it only weighs maybe 1% of the body weight or whatever, it uses 20% of our energy. Trillions of parallel networks. Somebody was talking earlier on this morning about the interconnectedness of things. Well, all of those 85 billion, 86 billion neurons are all multiply connected with 20,000 or more, 20,000 to 50,000 other neurons, highly interconnected systems. And we used to think that there might be a master of ceremonies in the brain somewhere, something that coordinated all this. We haven't found it. There's lots and lots of parallel systems going on. What we have, and we've heard a lot today about change, how do people change and the difficulties of change, and that's one of the surprises for me, because actually in the brain, the change occurs very, very easily. Your brains have all changed today, and they've all changed in different ways. And in fact, just the very fact that I'm standing up here talking about it has actually changed your brain even further. So those synapses are all connecting at different rates and for different people in different ways. So that's the fundamentals. So let's start taking a look at what's the primary drivers. There's one organizing principle, and it's really interesting to have followed Katerina talking about survival, because that is the primary purpose of the brain. The primary purpose of the brain is to minimize danger and maximize reward. And in order to go from a feeling of danger into reward, you have to feel safe. The brain needs to feel safe, otherwise it cannot experience reward. So safety first is the number one rule. And in fact, I would encourage you, if you were to walk away right now from this part of the presentation, take that one thing with you. Safety first is what the brain is driven by. So let's talk a little bit about it. It's going on in parallel. It's going on simultaneously all the time. And I mentioned just now that there was 11 million bits of information landing on your body every second. 40 of them are conscious. That's the ratio between the conscious and the non-conscious brain. And we'll come back to why that's important in a moment. If you have an imagination and you want to sort of put it into more visual terms, that would be the 40 bits, and the size of a football field would be the non-conscious. So that's the sort of ratio between the conscious and the non-conscious brain. So why do we care? Okay, so we now know about threats and rewards, we know about safety, and we know about the conscious and the non-conscious brain. So why is that important? In some work done about 6 years ago in UCLA, there was a couple, Naomi Eisenberger and Matt Lieberman, were starting to do some work on rejection. And how do people feel when they're rejected? And what they found is that if you get physically hurt, or you have a threat of being physically hurt, the brain lights up in 5 places. If you get socially hurt, like rejection, or the threat of social rejection or social hurt, the brain lights up in exactly the same 5 places. That means that social pain equals physical pain. as far as the brain is concerned. So wouldn't it be good to know as leaders exactly what are the sorts of things that we can do that either will prevent or encourage people to get socially or socially hurt? And we've come up with some categories. And the first one is, so I've just covered that. So the first one is, and this is an acronym you can use called SAFETY. Safety first. The first one is, the brain likes to feel secure. And in fact, the brain likes to feel, likes to have consistency. It likes to have certainty. It likes to feel comfortable. And it hates change. In fact, to the brain, every change is perceived as a threat. Even though it may be, in context, it may be a positive change, the brain will actually see it as a threat. So one of the ways you can avoid putting the brain into a threat state is to make people feel secure. Tell them what's going to happen, increases their certainty. Be consistent in your behavior. All of those types of things help the brain feel safe and remain in a reward state. The second one is autonomy. How many of you like being told what to do? Come on, there must be somebody who loves to be told what to do. There are some people. Most of us hate to be told what to do. Is that useful as a leader? Then you better believe it. As a leader, if I can now encourage people to come up with their own answers, there's a much greater chance of them actually activating upon what they discover. Anecdotal research tells us that when someone comes, if I work for Radvan, and I come to Radvan with a question, 80 to 85% of the time, research shows that I actually have a good idea what the answer should be. If Radvan gives me the answer, then he's telling me what to do. If he encourages the answer that may already be in me, then I get a reward because I've come up with the answer. It turns out if I come up with the answer, I get a little release of dopamine, which puts me into a reward state for about 2 to 5 minutes. Dopamine doesn't last in the brain very long. Its effects last about 2 to 5 minutes. So if I can put you into a reward state, then I've got a greater chance of you doing something. Because it turns out in that 2 to 5 minute period, we've got a greater chance of you taking action on that idea than at any other point in time. Third one is fairness. We have an innate sense that we like things to be fair. We talked about earlier on, the moral imperative. We like things to be fair. What does that mean for us as a leader? It means, earlier on, I said the brain wants consistency and it wants fairness. If I give a bonus to Lisa and Fred thinks he's done the same amount of work, then he doesn't think it's fair. The next one is esteem, and that is we all want to be made to feel good. In fact, we measure ourselves against other people, whether we're more than or less than other people. If we feel like we're less than, then we feel hurt inside. I've never done this process, but there's a process called speed dating, and I'm not going to ask anybody if they've done it in the room here either, especially those of you who are married. But in speed dating, two people sit opposite each other, they talk for 2 minutes, and then they move on and are asked whether they'd like to see that person again. That's the way it normally works. This research group in MIT stopped the process, and instead of saying, did you want to see that person again, they asked the question, do you think that person wanted to see you again? 94% accuracy on whether they thought that person would want to see them again. So we're picking up all those cues non-consciously. Happy to talk to you, anyone at the break, about that even more. Trust. We've heard a lot about that today. Trust. And trust is the single most important thing that we evaluate against that. And what I mean by trust is, are you in my in-group or are you in my out-group? The first thing that happens when we meet someone new is we treat them as a stranger. Go back to why the brain is around. The brain is around for survival. If you're a stranger, 1,000,000 years ago, probably means you were from another tribe, and therefore the only reason you're in my space is probably to threaten my existence. So we naturally treat people who are different to us as threats. So what happens, even if I find out that Joseph has a boxer dog, and I have a boxer, we have a common bond, we start talking about dogs, and all of a sudden I trust him a lot more, and by the way, I think he's a lot more competent than he was 5 minutes ago. Right? So the more that we can get around that I'm in the in-group versus the out-group, and in fact the in-group and the out-group processing happens differently in the brain. The last one is what we call the Y factor, and that's all about you. And that is that these top 5 are general situations. We all have those. Now we could start looking at what is it specifically about you and your brain that drives that. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the workshop tomorrow. So in any of these areas, we can put people into a reward or a danger situation. So now I'd say safety first and non-conscious, and now we've got all these 5 areas that we can put people into rewards or threats. As leaders of an organization, or as people who are helping leaders in an organization, what is going on with you when you are engaging with your people? We've talked about engagement a lot. What's happening? How are you coming across to those people? And are you putting them into a reward state or a threat state in all of your actions? So everybody that we know about, those 5 things, the SAFE, security, autonomy, fairness, esteem, and trust, we rank them differently. For some people, fairness is above all else. For some people, autonomy is above everything else. For some people, the relationship that we have, and therefore the trust. So we've all got a different ranking. So now, if you want to engage each of those individuals, if you can understand what their ranking of those 5 are, you have a greater chance of being able to engage and empower them. Does that make sense? Let's move on to the last topic, and that's about brainstorming. Brainstorming became a relatively common factor about 25 years ago. And for most of us, how we were taught how to do brainstorming, and I've run hundreds of brainstorming sessions, is throw out as many ideas as possible, build on each other's ideas, shouldn't be any critique or judgment, and get as many ideas out there, just throw them, and typically for about the first 15 or 20 minutes, that's the way that I'm going to use the old mechanism of brainstorming used to work. Turns out it doesn't work very well because that's exactly the opposite of how the brain works. I have lots more to say about the brain, but that's about all I can fit into 35 minutes.